Barney Kemp Riggs, a notorious Texan gunslinger from the days of the Wild West, carved his place in history. Hailing from Arkansas, he was born on December 18, 1856, into a family of 7 children, with Thomas and Hannah Felton Riggs as his parents. The Riggs family relocated to Texas soon after Barney's birth, setting the stage for a legacy of violence that would span generations. Notably, Barney grew into a violent man, and this proclivity for violence would also manifest in several of his siblings and descendants. The first recorded killing linked to Barney Riggs occurred at the tender age of 18, though it was described as an accidental shooting. He tragically took the life of his friend Hugh Armstrong in Salado, Texas. Fast forward 5 years to 1879, and when the sheriff sought to question him, Barney chose to make a hasty exit rather than face the inquiry. He then found himself in Cochise County, Arizona, where 2 of his uncles had established their homes. Barney secured employment with his uncle Jim Riggs, working as a cowboy on his ranch. During this time, he crossed paths with a woman named Vennie Hicklin from Dos Cabezas, and on February 21, 1882, the two tied the knot. Concurrently, it was suggested that he became involved in various criminal activities, predominantly horse theft in both Arizona and Mexico. During one of these incidents, he was rumored to have taken the lives of 2 Mexican men who engaged in a dispute with his cousin at a watering hole. At the time, 3 women accompanied the Mexican men, and they were initially spared. However, Barney became concerned that the women might identify him, prompting his return to the scene to fatally shoot them as well. Ironically, in spite of these criminal involvements, or perhaps because of them, when corrupt Cochise County Sheriff Johnny Behan deputized a group of men to pursue the Orp brothers and other gunmen who were immersed in their notorious vendetta ride, Barney Riggs joined the posse. Barney Riggs' next target was Richmond Hudson, who happened to be the stepson of his Uncle Jim and also his employer at the Riggs Ranch. When Barney returned from a cattle-buying trip to Texas in September 1886, he was greeted by rumors suggesting that his wife, Vennie, had been involved in a romantic affair with Hudson. Barney confronted Hudson about these allegations, but Hudson vehemently denied them. Barney chose to let the issue rest temporarily. However, a few days later, Hudson reportedly bragged about seducing Vennie Riggs. On September 29, 1886, an anonymous gunman, unseen, fired a fatal shot, taking Hudson's life. Yet the ongoing tension between Barney Riggs and Richmond Hudson was widely known, making Barney the primary suspect in the murder. A reward of $250 was posted for Riggs's apprehension, prompting him to flee into the mountains. It didn't take long before Fred Dodge, a lawman based in Tombstone, commenced his pursuit of Riggs. Collaborating with Deputy Sheriff Charlie Smith, they established a surveillance operation overlooking the Riggs Ranch. Once they observed a rider signaling Vennie Riggs from a hill near the ranch, they captured the couple and transported them to Tombstone. Vennie was soon released, but Barney remained in custody to face trial. The first trial took place on November 11, 1886, and the jury could not reach a unanimous decision. Several jurors believed that killing a man for making advances towards his wife was justifiable. As a result, a mistrial was declared. The second trial commenced the following month, and this time Barney Riggs would not be as fortunate. The jury could not condone an ambush-style murder, and on December 31, 1886, he was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in the Arizona Territorial Prison in Yuma. However, in October 1887, a critical incident unfolded at the prison. The prison warden, Thomas Gates, was attacked by 7 convicts attempting an escape. Riggs played a heroic role in this chaotic situation. Somehow, the convicts had managed to obtain firearms, and when the attack began, it resulted in a tumultuous brawl. While the prison gates were sealed, one of the convicts used Gates as a shield. Seizing the opportunity, Riggs grabbed a firearm from another escapee and shot the convict who was holding Gates hostage. Riggs's courageous actions saved the warden's life, and for his bravery, he was granted a pardon. He was released on December 31, 1887, just 1 year after his initial conviction. He then traveled to California, where his wife Vennie and their son, William Earl Riggs, were residing. Unfortunately, it appeared that their relationship had deteriorated beyond repair, and Barney eventually took his son back to Texas, leaving Venny behind. He joined forces with his younger brother Tom in managing a ranch located approximately 30 miles west of Texas. In the spring of 1889, an article in the Albuquerque Citizen claimed that Riggs had been arrested for the killing of a cowboy. However, Riggs vehemently denied this accusation, and there is no official record of his incarceration during that time. Notably, there is no documented evidence of a legal divorce from his first wife, Venny. Nevertheless, Barney Riggs entered into a second marriage on September 23, 1891, with a woman named Annie Stella Fraser Johnson. She was the former wife of James Johnson, who had served as the sheriff of Pecos County, and the sister of George A. Bud Fraser, the Reeves County sheriff. This union would later result in the birth of 4 children, although their marriage would be strained with difficulties. In 1891, a grave error was made when Riggs's brother-in-law, Sheriff Bud Fraser, appointed the notorious gunfighter Jim Miller as his deputy. This unfortunate decision coincided with a surge in cattle rustling and horse theft in the Pecos Valley region. Riggs brought his concerns to Fraser's attention, suggesting that Miller should be considered a possible suspect. However, lacking concrete evidence, Fraser chose to retain Miller as his deputy. It wasn't until Miller shot and killed a Mexican prisoner, claiming the man was attempting to escape, that Fraser initiated an investigation. Riggs claimed that Miller had killed the man to silence him because he was aware of the stolen mules hidden by the deputy. Upon discovering that Riggs's accusation was accurate and successfully recovering the stolen mules, Fraser promptly dismissed Miller from his position. This marked the outset of a lethal feud between Fraser and Miller, a feud that would persist over the following years. In 1892, a controversial figure named Andrew Jackson Royal was elected as the Pecos County Sheriff and promptly hired Riggs as one of his deputies. Often referred to as AJ, Royal's tenure as sheriff sparked a division among local residents. Some viewed him as a diligent lawman striving to establish order, while others accused him of abusing his authority, especially by intimidating those who opposed him. During Royal's 2-year stint as sheriff, his behavior grew increasingly aggressive and menacing, leading to accusations of several assaults. While there is no definitive evidence of Riggs's involvement in these incidents, it would not be surprising if he were implicated. The situation escalated during the 1894 re-election campaign, resulting in a bitter political feud that required the intervention of the Texas Rangers to resolve. In October, both Royal and his deputies, including Riggs, Camilio Terrazas, and John P. Meadows, were arrested by the Texas Rangers on charges of conspiring to aid in the escape of a Mexican prisoner named Victor Ochoa from the local jail. Later that month, Royal lost the election and was assassinated in November. While serving as a deputy in Pecos County, Riggs managed to evade some potential arrests. However, this was not the case in neighboring Reeves County, even though his brother-in-law was the sheriff there. Riggs faced multiple arrests in Reeves County on charges of public drunkenness, carrying a pistol unlawfully, and assault. In March 1893, he was indicted in Reeves County for assaulting a man named Augustin Polanco with the intent to kill. Polanco alleged that when he visited the Riggs ranch to recover a stray burro, Riggs shot at him and brutally attacked him. However, when the case went to trial, Riggs was acquitted and found not guilty. Just 4 days after that indictment, Riggs was apprehended by his brother-in-law, Sheriff Bud Fraser, on a firearms possession charge and brought before County Judge George M. Fraser, who was both Bud's father and Barney's father-in-law. Due to this familial connection, the case was transferred to another jurisdiction and was eventually dismissed. Bud Fraser and Jim Miller engaged in 2 gunfights, one in April and another in December, but both men survived. After losing the 1894 re-election, Fraser relocated to Carlsbad, New Mexico, where he operated a livery stable. In early 1896, 2 of Miller's henchmen, John Denson and Bill Earhart, were overheard making threats against Barney Riggs in Fort Stockton. Subsequently, they traveled to Pecos, Texas, to locate Riggs. U.S. Deputy Marshal D. Harkey sent a warning telegram, and Riggs evaded them upon their arrival. However, on the morning of March 3rd, while Riggs was temporarily working as a bartender in R.S. Johnson's saloon, he was alone. Denson and Earhart burst into the establishment, and a shot from Earhart grazed Barney. In response, Barney quickly returned fire, fatally shooting Earhart. He then grappled with Denson before Denson managed to escape. Riggs pursued him, and as Denson was fleeing, Barney shot him in the back of the head, killing him instantly. Riggs surrendered himself, and despite being tried for murder, he was acquitted. Later that year, Riggs's brother-in-law, Bud Fraser, would not escape a similar fate. While paying a visit to his family in Toyah, Texas, he was brutally assassinated by Jim Miller on September 14, 1896. Over the ensuing years, Riggs persisted in his reckless and violent behavior, eventually leading to his wife Annie leaving him. She assumed the management of the Kohler Hotel in Fort Stockton, Texas. Throughout their separation, Barney engaged in numerous escapades, persistently harassing her whenever he was under the influence. Their marital bond eventually ended, with Annie being granted a divorce in March 1901. As stipulated in the divorce settlement, Barney Riggs was obligated to make regular child support payments. Daniel J. Buck Chadbourne, a 21-year-old man married to Annie's daughter from a previous marriage, was designated as the trustee responsible for handling these payments. However, Barney held a strong resentment toward Chadbourne's involvement and frequently expressed his anger by berating the young man. A year later, Chadbourne decided to petition the court to relieve him of this responsibility. Still infuriated, Barney physically assaulted him with a cane in April 1902. The following day, when Riggs encountered Chadbourne again, he menacingly approached the young man, cane in hand. When Riggs made a threatening gesture toward Chadbourne, the younger man responded by shooting Riggs in the chest. Riggs was quickly taken to the Kohler Hotel, but succumbed to his injuries the next day. Barney Riggs was laid to rest in the Old Fort Cemetery in Fort Stockton, alongside his former partner, A.J. Royal. Chadbourne was subsequently indicted for second-degree murder and faced trial in Brewster County in October 1903. He was eventually found not guilty. He then relocated to New Mexico, where he embarked on a lengthy career in law enforcement, serving as a deputy sheriff and U.S. Customs agent. In 1904, Annie Riggs acquired the hotel where she had been employed and rebranded it as the Riggs Hotel. She managed the establishment with great success for an extended period until her passing in May 1931. Today, the building remains standing, serving as the Annie Riggs Museum in Fort Stockton. R.S. Johnson's saloon in Pecos, Texas, where Riggs confronted and killed Jim Miller's associates William Earhart and John Denson, is now part of the west of the Pecos Museum. Within the museum, there is a plaque on the floor designating the precise location where Denson met his demise. Though the notorious Jim Miller would continue with his wicked ways for the next few years, he too would finally get his just end when he was hanged by vigilantes in Ada, Oklahoma, in 1909.